Hello. In this video, I'm gonna show you how you can create this kind of portfolio website for yourself. So I have made this portfolio website for myself. At the top, you can see navigation bar. Then I have this hero section where I'm showing my Tinder photo and here is a nice text saying, "Hi, I'm Prem Sagar," and this is a short description about myself. Then I have a link to all of my social media handles. Then if we scroll down, we have my skills section, and in my skills section I have shown all of my skills related to front end, back end, database deployment, and so on. And all of these cards are nicely animating. Next, I have this fun fact section where I have shown a thumbnail of some of my videos, and if you click any of these videos, you will be redirected to the video on YouTube. Next, I have this services section and it has parallax effect. As you can see, the background is not changing, only the content is scrolling up and down. Here I have three cards where I am showing three different services which I provide: full stack development, front end development, and back end development. As you can see, when I'm hovering over these cards, these are changing background color and also the text color from black to white. Next, I have project section where I have shown these three cards which are showing three dummy projects. Later I will replace these cards with some real projects. Next, I have contact section where you can see these two sections are nicely animating. This one is a message me or contact me form from where anyone can send me email, and on the left side I am showing my location, email, phone number, etc. Next, at the bottom I have footer which has some lorem ipsum text, and then at the bottom also I have left link of my social media handles. So if you also want to create this kind of portfolio website for yourself using HTML and Tailwind CSS, then keep watching. So let's start by creating a fresh folder on the desktop. So I'll minimize my Chrome, and here in the desktop I'll right click and I'll create a new folder. I'll name it portfolio. I'll open up this folder, and in the empty space I'll right click and I'll click on open with code. So the very first thing which I'm going to do, I will install Tailwind CSS, since I'm going to use Tailwind CSS to style all of the elements in my HTML page. So let me quickly go to the Tailwind CSS official website so that we can see all of the steps that we need to take in order to install it on our project. So first we will run this command. So let me open up terminal in my VS Code by pressing Ctrl plus tilde. And so before running that command, I need to initialize the npm. So I will say npm init. So I'm gonna leave the package name to portfolio only, version 1, description I'm gonna leave it empty, entry point I will leave it to index.js, and test command I'm not gonna put anything over here. Git repository, let's leave all of the things blank, and in place of author I'll give my name. Okay, so all of these data are okay, so I'll press Y. Now let's copy this command from Tailwind CSS website and run it on the terminal. Okay, so all of these things are being installed. Now Tailwind CSS is installed, so now we need to run this command npx tailwind css init. So let's run this command, and it has shown an error and it is saying that cannot find module post css. So Tailwind CSS itself has a dependency and it needs post css. So let me first install post css. So I'll say npm install, and I'm just writing I, which is short of install, and I'll say post css. So let's run this command to install post css. And now once again let's run this npx tailwind css init command for Tailwind CSS to work. Okay, so npx tailwind css init, let's run it. So what this command essentially did is it created Tailwind CSS configuration file named tailwind config.js. So this is the configuration file for Tailwind CSS. Now let's look at the next step which we need to take. So here it is saying configure your template path. Add a path of all of your template files in your tailwind config.js. So basically what we have to do, we have to set the value of content equal to the path of the files where we want to apply Tailwind CSS. So inside double quotes, I will provide the path of the index.html. For now, let's leave it blank and move on. I'll set it later. Next thing what we need to do is we need to add the Tailwind directive to our CSS file. So this CSS file is going to be in the src folder and the name of the file will be input.css. So let's quickly create a source folder src and let's create a CSS file named input.css. This is going to be the CSS file for our landing page. So in this CSS file, we have to copy all of these statements. So now the fourth step is to start the Tailwind CLI build process. So we will copy this command and we will run it on our terminal. So let's paste it and press enter. And what this command did is it actually created a dist folder or distributable folder where it has created output.css file. So this is going to be our CSS file. Input.css is the place where we can write our own custom CSS, and output.css is actually the processed file which is processed using Tailwind CSS. So now inside this dist folder, I'm going to create my index.html. So I'll create a new file. I'll call it index.html. So let's give it some boilerplate code. So I'll press shift plus exclamation mark and then I'll press tab and I'll set the title equal to my name, Prem Sagar. And for now, inside the body element, I'm gonna create a heading h1 and I'll say hello world, and let's style this element using Tailwind CSS just to make sure that the Tailwind CSS is working properly. So I'll say class text red. Let's save it, and it should not work because we have not yet completed all of the steps. The last thing is to link the output.css. So I'll copy this line of code and inside my index.html I will paste it, and here essentially what we are doing, we are linking to the CSS file output.css. So I'll remove this at the front because output.css and index.html both are in the same folder. Now let's save it. Come back to tailwind.config.js, the Tailwind configuration file, and let's come back to Tailwind CSS website and look at the instruction. How do we have to configure the config file? So let's copy all of these and paste it inside here. Now since my HTML file is not inside src folder, so I'll replace this src with dist because my index.html where I want to use the Tailwind CSS is inside the dist folder. So now let's save it, and just to make sure that everything is working properly and there is no warning or error, let's first of all come to terminal and press Ctrl+C to cancel. Once again run this command of npx tailwind css so that we can see if there is any warning or error shown when we are building the CSS file. So now let's run this command, and as you can see there's no warning. Rebuilding is done in 370 milliseconds. So now we are good to go. Now I want to launch this website to our browser using live server. So if you haven't installed live server on your VS Code, then go to extensions tab and install an extension called live server. And if you already have installed it, then you are good to go. Now come to index.html and right click and click on open with live server. And as you can see, I was expecting that this hello world will appear in red color, but it did not. So let's try to find out what is the problem. So I quickly spotted the problem. Here the class which I have set text red is not actually Tailwind utility class. So I'll click within the class name and I'll press Ctrl+ spacebar so that it shows me all of the options. So these are all of the shades. So I'm going to use text red 900. Now this is the correct Tailwind CSS class. Now if I save the file and go back, now the hello world is appearing in red. So this means Tailwind CSS is working fine. And by the way, if you are wondering how did I get this drop down list which showed me all of the available Tailwind classes, then you can again install an extension. So this is the Tailwind CSS IntelliSense. This extension will give you all of the class names available in Tailwind. So we have done all of the preparation. Now let's start building our project. So at the top level, I'm gonna create a div with class container, and inside this div, our web page is gonna have header, a main section, and a footer. Inside header, there will be a navigation bar, and inside the nav bar, there will be an unordered list with 5 list items. List item will be home. The second list item will be my skills, and here I will write services, projects, and the last link will be of contact me section. After navigation bar, I will create a section or a hero section, I must say, because I'm gonna put my image in that section. So I'll create a section with class hero. Now let's jump to the main element of our page, and in the main element we are gonna have different sections. So the first section will have ID of skills, and in the second section I'm gonna show my YouTube videos, so I will give it ID of YouTube. Then I'll show list of all of the services, so I'll give it ID of services. Next section will be for projects, and the last section will be for contact forms. Then at the end of the page we will have our footer. So for now I'm gonna write some lorem ipsum. Let's save and have a look at our page. I'm zoomed in, that is why all of these are looking very big. So let me zoom out and come to 100%. So now as you can see, our navigation links are appearing, but currently these are not styled perfectly. So let's rearrange my windows side by side so that we can see input and output at the same time. For now I'll close the terminal and let's start styling the navigation bar. I will change the unordered list into a flex box so that all of the items come in a single line. So I will give it a class of flex. Now let's save. You might have not noticed, but I actually needed to save this file twice to see the update on our browser. And the reason behind it is every time we save our HTML file, the CSS is being rebuilt again and again. That is why it is taking a while for CSS styles to be applied, and that is the reason we need to save this file twice. So if this happens in your case, it's totally fine. Okay, there's no problem. You cannot see the changes immediately just because it is rebuilding the CSS. Now I will give it a class of justify evenly, and what this class will do, it will align all of the items. As you can see, even when I'm changing the width of our web browser, the unordered list items are getting justified evenly. I want to give it padding of 5, and I want the font to be semi bold. Currently this lorem ipsum of footer is appearing at the top, so let's do something to bring it down. After the navigation bar we have this section, this hero section, right? So what we will do, we will set height for this hero section. So I'll say h-screen, and what this class will do, it will set the height of this section equal to 100 vh. And now as you can see, the footer has come at the bottom because this section is taking up the full height of our screen. Now let's give some background color to our header. So inside the opening tag of our header, I'll say class equal to bg-gradient, because I want to give it a gradient background -2 -t for giving it a gradient which will start from top. Then after space I'll say 2 black and from square brackets, and here I'm gonna give the exact hexadecimal value for the color which I'm going to use. So 0930, this is the color which I'm going to use. So let's save it. It has given background color to our header, but I don't know what is the reason why there is white space at the right. What is the reason? Full screen, there is no problem, but as soon as I'm making the browser small, okay, now there is no problem. What is wrong? Why is it leaving gap? What is the problem? Let's remove this class of container. I think this is causing problem. And yes, I was right. Because we had kept everything inside the container, that is why the container was being resized. Okay, so let's move on. I want all of the text of our web page to be white. So inside this, I'm gonna say text white. And now once again, our navigation bar has become visible. Now let's set background image of this hero section. So inside the class attribute, I will write bg dash, and inside the square brackets, I will provide the URL of the image file which I'm going to use as background. So before providing the path to the file, first I need to have the file in my project, right? So I'll open this dist folder in the file explorer, and in here I'm gonna create a folder image. I'm gonna cut paste my image. So this is the image file which I'm going to use. It is named me6.jpg. So let's come back to our code. Inside the URL, I'll say image /me6.jpg. I'll save the file, and now as you can see, the background image is showing up, but with its original width and height. So let's apply some classes to fix this. So I'll say bg dash cover, then I'll say bg dash center. Now these two classes have brought my Tinder image nicely at the center of our web page. As you can see, if I maximize it, this picture is perfectly at the center. I want to apply one more class. I want to make this image fixed. So I'll say bg dash fixed. Now as you can see, background image is fixed. Okay, so now my image is styled perfectly. Now inside this section, I will create an h1 element, and I'll say, hi, I'm Prem Sagar. Then I'll create a paragraph element, and I'm gonna copy paste some text. Now let's save it. Now these two elements are showing up on the browser. Let's style them. I should have put them inside a div, so let's do it now. I want these two elements to appear at the bottom. So what I'll do, I'll make this section a flex box once again. So I'll say items dash end, and I'll save the file. Now as you can see, it has come at the bottom. Now let's style this div. I'll say class equal to margin bottom 20. Let's give it a background color. So I'll say bg dash, and within the square bracket give hexadecimal value. So I'll say 0000000. I will change it to RGB value, and I want to give it opacity of 0.5. Now let's save it. I think the padding is not enough, so I'll give it padding of 20. Increase the margin bottom. So I will give it, and now I think it is at the right place. Now let's see how does it look in the maximized window, and this is how it looks. Let's make the heading bold. So I'll say class equal to font bold. Let's increase the text size. So I'll say text dash 6 XL. Let's give this heading margin bottom of 5. Let's save it, and inside the div, let's give it a class of text center so that text align themselves in the center. I want the text of this paragraph to be larger in the large screen size. So I'll say text SM for all of the devices. I want the text size to be regular or basic in medium devices. So I'll say MD text base, and on large devices, I want to set the text size to large. Let's save it, and now let's check if the classes are working properly or not. So as you can see in the large screen, this text is appearing a bit larger, and as I'm reducing the screen size here, it is changing its font size, and in smaller devices here it is also changing the font size to SM or small. Now if I maximize the browser, as you can see, my image is taking the full width. But if you look at my previous project, let me quickly show you, the image is not taking the full width. And the reason behind it is I have given it the class of BG cover, which is applying this background size CSS property equal to cover to this background. So I don't want this property to be applied in large devices. So for large devices, I'll say lg:bg-contain, and I want to include one more class, bg no repeat, so that the background does not repeat. Now let's save. Now as you can see, my image is not taking the full width in the large devices. But if I reduce the size, the background property of bg contain is being replaced with bg cover. So I'm happy with this. Okay, I see one more problem. In the small devices, this text is too big. So before this text -6xl class, I'll write lg:, so that this class is applied only in large screen sizes. And for all the other screen sizes, I'm gonna say text -2xl. 2xl is too small, so I'll change it to 4xl. Let's save it, and I think this size is good enough. Now let's create the skills section. First of all, let me write a heading, and this heading will say my skills. And after the heading, I will create Tailwind CSS grid. I'll create a div, and this grid is going to have two columns. So I'll say grid-cols-2. Now inside this grid, I'm gonna create two divs, which will be considered as two columns of this grid. This will be our first column, and this will be our second column. So in the first column, I'm gonna create separate div for each of the cards. So I'll say div. I will give it a heading with h6. First card will list all of my front-end abilities, and in here will be an unordered list. So I'm simply gonna copy paste the list items from the last project. In the front end, the items are React, Next, Bootstrap, and Tailwind CSS. Let's save the file and see how does it look. Since I have set the text color to be white in the topmost div, that is why texts are not visible. So let's set background color for the body. So in the opening tag of body, I'll say class equal to bg-, and I'll give it this color. So currently this is how our first skill card is looking. So let me write a comment so that it's easy to recognize. Let's start styling this card. So I'll write class equal to p5 and border -2 and border left -red -600. Okay, instead of border -2, I should have written border r-2 because I want the border to be only at the right side. Okay, my mistake, not at the right side but at the left side. So let's save it. Let's give a little bit of padding to this column. So I'll say class equal to p10. I want this card to be rounded, so I'll give it class of rounded -2xl. I will give it background of gray 200. I think it's 900. What was the background? Okay, I looked into my previous project, and I think the background color which I used in the previous project was this color. Let's style this my skills heading. First of all, let's give some padding to this section. So I'll say p-20. Okay, it is not working because mistakenly I am giving class name inside id. So I need to write class equal to, and then inside the class I will write p-20. Let's save it. Now it has given nice padding to this section. Now style this heading. I'll say class equal to, I want this text to be at the center, so I'll say text center, and I want the font to be bold, and I want the text size to be 4xl, and I want to give it margin bottom of 10. This word front end is actually a heading, so I will change the color of this heading. So I'll say class equal to red 600, and I want this text to be semi bold, so I'll say font dash semi bold. Now I'll copy this column and I'll place it in place of second column so that we can reuse these codes. Save it, and now 2 rows are created for us. Let me maximize it and have a look. How does it look? So this is how it is looking for now. I want this left border to be a bit more thick, so change its thickness from 2 to 8, and I'll do the same for the upper border also. So now as you can see, in Tailwind CSS we can give custom style to each and every element of our web page, and it makes the whole styling process very fast. But sometimes we need to apply the same style to different elements. So for that, what we can do, since some of the cards are going to have exactly the same styles, so what I'll do, I'll copy these class names, and instead of, and here I'm gonna give it a class. So I'll say skill card, and inside the input.css I will apply styles. So I'll say skill card and I'll say add apply, and I'm gonna paste all of the classes. So what will happen, all of the styles associated with these class names will be applied to all the elements which have class name skill card. So let me replace these classes also, and I will give it class of skill card, and as you can see, nothing has changed. So I'm gonna have 3 skill cards in each of the columns. So I'll copy this card and I'll paste it twice in each of the columns. I will quickly replace these list items from my previous projects along with its headings. I have replaced all of the list items along with its heading, and I have also given specific color to each of the headings. So I also want the color of borders also to be different. So I'll come to input.css and I'll remove this class border L red 600 so that it does not apply the same border color to each of the borders. And I will add a margin bottom class and I'll say MB-10. Now let's come back to index.html. Now I will give different border color to each of the skill cards. So here I'll say border dash left dash blue 600. Okay, spelling of my border is wrong, so I'll correct it. Now let's save. Now the border color is changed. Let's do the same for rest of the skill cards. So I'll say border dash left dash green dash 600. I will quickly copy the color from heading and I'll paste it over here. Border L dash orange 400, and in the front end skill card I will give it border dash L dash red 600, and in database skill card I'll say border dash L dash yellow 600. And last but not least, the skill card for version control is going to have pink 600. So I'll say border dash L dash pink 600. So this is how all of our skill cards are looking. Let me maximize and have a look at it. Let's compare it with previous design. Okay, in previous design text size was a bit high, so let's change the text size. So inside this top level div for this grid, I'll say text dash 4XL, and text 4XL is a bit too high, so let's change it to 2XL and let's see how does it look. Yeah, text 2XL is good. I want to increase the padding of each of skill card, so I'll come to input.css and instead of P5 I will say P10. Okay, now the card is looking good in large devices, but what about small devices? In small devices size should be a little bit smaller. So here in this div, before the class text-2XL, I will say LG colon, so that this class is applied only in large devices, and for smaller devices I'm gonna say SM colon text base. Now text size is good enough for small devices and it is also large enough for large devices too. Now as you can see, as I'm decreasing the width of my browser, cards are being squeezed down. So what I'll do to fix this, before this grid cost -2 class, I will write MD colon. So what will happen, this grid will have 2 columns only in medium devices or above, but smaller devices it will not apply this class, so there won't be 2 column. Instead, in smaller devices all of the column will come in one line. Now I want to keep things organized, so I should have done it in the beginning only, but it's never too late. Let me write some comments so that I can identify each of the sections. So here I have navigation bar. Now I'll copy this comment, and before skills section I'm gonna paste this comment and I'll replace this word with skills section. I'm writing comment for each sections just to separate these sections so that it becomes easy for me to recognize each of the parts of my code. Otherwise it will become very hard for me to look for any specific section. Here I'm gonna say YouTube section, and here I'll say services section. Then I have project section, I have contact section. So my skills section is ready, as you can see. Now let's create YouTube section. So inside YouTube section, again gonna have grid. So I'll create a div with class grid, and this grid will have 3 columns. So I'll say grid calls -3. Now each column will have a thumbnail image of my YouTube video. So first I'll create 3 wrapper divs, and inside anchor tag I'm gonna have image. So here in the source attribute, I'm gonna provide link to my YouTube video thumbnail. So let me quickly bring those photos in my project. So I'll open this image folder, file explorer, and here I'm going to create a new folder. I'll name it YouTube thumbnails, and inside this folder I'm gonna copy paste some of my videos thumbnails. So these are thumbnails which I'm going to use. For sake of simplicity, I'm gonna rename these to 1, 2 and 3. Now let's come back to our project. Now I can provide the source of my images. So I'll say image /thumbnails /11.png. Now for the second thumbnail, inside second div, I'll again create an anchor element, and inside anchor element I'm gonna create image element, and I'll provide path to my second YouTube thumbnail, image /YouTube thumbnails /12.png, and in the third div I'm gonna provide third thumbnail photograph name is 13.png. Now let's save it and let's have a look. So now these 3 images are perfectly aligned in 3 columns, but I need little gap between these columns, right? So in the parent div here I'll say gap 10. Now there is gap between each of the row, but also need to have some padding in this section. So in the opening tag of this section I'll say class equal to T20, and I also want to give heading to this section. So I will use an st element, and I will write fun fact, also a YouTuber. Now let's save it. Now again we don't want to have 3 columns in this grid in small devices, so I'll say md : before grid calls 3 class, and I'll save this. And now as you can see, this grid is not forming 3 columns in small devices, but if I maximize it, we have this nice structure of 3 columns in medium devices and above. Now I want to give same style to each of the section heading as the first one. So what I'll do, I'll come to skills section and I will copy all of these classes, or I'll cut all of these classes and I'll give it a class section heading. And inside input.css I'll say section heading apply, and then I'll paste all of the Tailwind utility classes. Now let's save and let's come back to index.html. I will give this section heading class name to each of the section heading. So I'll come back to YouTube section and I'll give this h2 class of section heading. Now it has same styling as this one. Now what do we need to do? Let me maximize my browser and let's have a look at the previous project. In the previous project, each section has a gradient background color, and the 2 color which I'm using is deep blue and black. So the gradient color is being changed in each of the section. In my skills section, gradient is coming from deep blue to black, and in this fun fact section it is again changing from black to blue. Then in project section it has plain background, no gradient background. So I'll do the same in my current project also. So let me jump back to skills section, and here I want to specify background for this section. So I'll say bg gradient to top, then after space I'll say from dash, and then within the square brackets I will copy paste my color over here, and then I'll say from, sorry, not from black, I'll say to black. Actually I need to interchange this from to and to from. So I'll cut this and I'll paste it over here. Here I will write from. Now let's save. Now the order must have got reversed. Yes, now it is starting from blue color. What mistake did I make? I had to write 2. Now I'll copy these classes and I'll paste it in YouTube section in reverse order. So I'll again change this word to from, and this word from to. So what will happen? We will have seamless gradient. So here I have blue color. Now at the bottom of this section I have black, and at the top of this YouTube section I have black, and at the bottom of this YouTube section I have blue. Okay, so now let's start building our next section, which is services section. So we are again going to create a grid. So I'll say div dot grid calls 3, and inside this grid we are gonna have 3 more divs. So I'll say div into 3. Let's say tab. Now I'm gonna provide 3 kind of services. So first service is going to be full stack development. Then I will give a short description of what kind of service I will provide in this service. So I'll just copy paste some text from my previous project. Now the second type of service which I provide is just front end development. So I'll again copy paste some text. Third type of services which I provide is just back end development. Now let's save it and have a look. So currently this is how 3 columns are looking. Let me style these. So what I want to do, I want to create card for each of these services. So what I'll do, I'll give a class to all of these divs. I'll call it services card or service card, and I'm gonna give same class to all the other 2 divs, and I'll come to input.css and I'll target service card. Then I'll say apply, and here I'm gonna write Tailwind utility classes name, which will be applied to all of these. So first of all, I want text to align at center. So I'll say text center. And for H5 of each of this service card, I want to say font bold. I had to write H5 over here. Now let's save so that it makes bold only the headings. Now let's come to index.html and give specific color to each of the cards. So I'll say bg-green 400. And for second card, I'll say bg-violet 500, and for the third card I'll say bg pink 500. Now I want each of these cards to have padding of 5, and I also want these cards to be rounded. So I'll say rounded to XL. I want the text to be black, so I'll say text black, but I want the text color to be changed when I hover over it to white. So I'll say hover text white. So now if I hover cards, the text color will change to white. I also want to have some gap between each of the columns. So the place where I have defined grid class, I'll say gap 10, and I also want to give this section padding of 20. So I'll say p-20. Now let's save. Okay, again I am trying to give class inside id attribute. So I'll say class p-20. I want to give heading to this section. So I'll say services. I will give this heading a class of section heading, and I want to set a background image for this section. So let me first bring background image inside image folder. So I'll right click in this image, and again I'll open it my file explorer. Inside image folder, I'm again gonna create a new folder and I'll call it background, and I will copy paste the background image which I'm going to use. So I'm going to use these 2 images, bg6 and bg computer, as my backgrounds. So the one which I'm going to use in services section is this bgcomputer.jpg. I have downloaded these images from pexels.com. So here in the class of opening tag of this section, I will write bg dash within square bracket. I'll write URL, and inside parentheses I'll give single quotes, and here I'm gonna provide URL or path to my background image. So I'll say image /background /bg-computer.jpg. Now let's save it. So this is the background, but currently we cannot see anything because the image is too large. So let's give it some more classes. I'll say bg-cover and bg-no repeat and bg-fixed. Let's save it, and now this image is appearing nicely. Now if you look back into my previous project, you can see that on top of this background image I have a shade of gray, which is making this image a little bit darker. So what I have done, I actually have given it an overlay. So let's do that quickly. First, I want to give this section position of relative, because I'm going to create a new div inside this section which will be positioned absolutely. So I'll give this div class, and here I'll say absolute. I want to position this top 0 and left 0. I want to have this width of 100%, so I'll say w-full, and I also want to give this height of 100%, so I'll say h-full, and I want to give it a background color, so I'll say bg- inside the square bracket I will give exact hexadecimal value of black color, but I want to change this hexadecimal value to RGB value or RGBA value, and I want to set the opacity to, I don't know, let's see, 0.47. How does it look? Save. And now as you can see, the image has become a bit darker because of that overlay div. But currently this div is on top of grid also, which is showing 3 cards. So I don't want this. So we will set Z index for section, and we will also set Z index for this overlay div. So here I'll say Z10, and to this overlay div, I will give it Z index of -1. So I'll say Z1, and before this I'll put a minus, and I think this class is not available. What is the reason? I'll say Z. Okay, I have Z -0, so let's use this class. Let's save. So clearly this is not working. -0 is not working. What else values do we have? -10. Let's see. This is working. Okay, so now our overlay is looking fine. Now let's change padding of these skill cards. So I'll come to input.css and I'll increase padding from 5 to 20. Now these cards are looking good. I also want to change the background when I hover over these. So I'll say hover :bg-blue 400. Let's save it. And now the background is also changing when I'm hovering over these. Right now it is happening so quickly, which is making it look ugly. So I'll want them to transition. So I'll say transition colors, and I also want this transition to be eased. So I'll say ease linear. Let's save. And now this hover effect is cool, isn't it? Now on top of these headings, I want to add some icons like these. So I'm gonna use icons from Font Awesome. So I'll come to fontawesome.com and I'll click on start for free, and I'll come to button which says download, and I'll download it. And since I had already downloaded it, that is why it is saying that you've downloaded a copy already, right? So I want to download it once again. So I'll say download Font Awesome free for the web. I'll click on this button once again. Now let's open this in folder, and I'll cut it and I'll paste it in my project folder. So here inside the dist folder, I will create a new folder. I'll name it Font Awesome. I don't know if spelling is right or not. If spelling is wrong, then just forgive me. Now here I want to extract it. Now we don't need the zip file anymore, so let's delete it. Open up this folder. We need to have this web fonts folder and the CSS folder. We don't need anything else, so we'll delete it, although I'm gonna leave attribution and license.txt. Now inside the CSS folder, I will delete all of the files except all.css and all.min.css. In production version, we will use all.min.css, but for now I'm gonna use all.css. So let's come to our project, and in the index.html, come inside the head element, and here I will link my Font Awesome file. So in this href attribute, I will give path of all.css file from Font Awesome. So I'll say Font Awesome / this folder name, then / CSS, and I'm gonna add this all.css. Let's save it. Now we can use Font Awesome icons. So I'll come back to my services section, and for full stack development card, I'm gonna use icon of a server and a computer. So let's come to Font Awesome and search for icon. I'll say computer, and I'll click on free so that it shows only the icons which are free. So I'm gonna use this icon. So I'll copy the HTML and I'll paste it here. One more icon which I'm going to use is of this server. I'll click on it and I'll click on start using this icon, copy the HTML, and I'll paste it here. Let's save and let's have a look at here is the icon, but it is too small. Okay, there is one problem. I do not want this grid in small devices. So before this class grid calls 3, I'll prefix md : so that this grid appears only in medium sized devices and above. Let's save it. Now it's good. Now let's come back to our icon. This icon is too small, so how can we increase the size? I'll say fa-3x. Now let's save. This icon size has increased. After first icon, I'm gonna put a plus sign, and I will also increase the size of second icon. So I'll say fa-3x. Sorry, fa-3x. This plus sign is just not visible, so I'll create span element and I'll put this plus sign inside span, and I'll give class attribute to this span, and I want to increase the text size. So I'll say text 8xl. Let's save, and this is not working. What is the problem? Okay, if you look at the terminal, the rebuilding has stopped. I don't know what is the problem. So let me rerun the command npx tailwind css. dash input source and output source. Let's see, rebuilding is done. Now it is working. So 8xl is too high, so I'll say 6xl. This is good. Now I'll copy this laptop icon to front-end development section or front-end development service card, and I'll copy this server icon on back-end development service card. Let's save it. And now as you can see, these cards are looking great, but I want to make it even better. So I want to give some spacing between the icon and heading, and I also want to give some spacing between heading and this short description. So I want to target these h5s. So I will come to input.css. So within this block where I'm targeting the h5 element of service card, I'll say my for giving margin in y-axis. I'll say 10. Let's save. And I think this value 10 is a bit too high, so I'll reduce it to 5. Now let's save. Yeah, now spacing between all of these three elements, the icon, heading and the description, is making it look nice. So I think service section is almost complete, so I'll move on to next section. So next we have the project section. Let's start creating project section and let's design it. So here in the opening tag, I'll add a class and I'll give this section padding of 20. And sorry, I forgot to put a dash between P and 20. So let me correct it. Now in this project section, I want to have 3 cards. If you have a look at my previous project, then you can see, let me first open up the previous project. Yes, so this is my previous project. If you look at my previous project, you can see this project section has 3 cards, which is showing 3 different dummy projects. So let's recreate this. Here again, I want to create grid. So I'll say div.grid.grid dash calls dash 3. That's it, tab. And here I will create 3 cards. So I'll first create a div which will act as a wrapper, and in the first div I'm gonna show the image, and in the second div I will write heading for the card, and I will have a short description of the project, and then inside a div I will have link of the source code of the project. So let's come back to this div. Here, instead of using an image element inside this div, what I will do, I will set a background image for this div. So I will give it a class and I'll say bg dash inside square bracket, I will provide a URL of background image. So the image which I'm going to use is inside this folder, inside image. Here I have created a new project folder, and inside project folder I have these 3 images. This is the first one, this second one, and this is third one. So I'll right click on this file and I'll copy relative path. Now come back to index.html and I'll paste the path which I just copied, and I'll remove this dist from the beginning because we are in the same folder, and I'll replace these backward slash with forward slash. Now let's save and have a look at our index.html page. So currently we cannot see this div because it does not have any height or width. So let's quickly give it some height and width. So here I'll say dash, I want to give it height of 80. I'm just giving some arbitrary value because I am just doing hit and trial for now. And for width, I want to give it width of 100%. So I'll say W full. Let's save. And now as you can see, the background image is appearing, but with its original width and height. So I'll give it a class bg-cover and bg-center. Let's save. Now we can see the image of our card. Now let's give this card a heading. So I want to give this heading of social media app, and for the description, for now I'm gonna write some dummy text because after all this is a dummy project. So I'll say lorem 20 because I want to have 20 words description, and here within the anchor element I will say source code, and before this word source code I want to show icon of GitHub. So first let's save it and have a look how does it looks, and I think there is some problem because this should have not appeared parallel to each other. So what is the reason? Let me resave it again. This is image div and I have a closing tag by mistake over here. Let's remove it. Now let's save. Now it's showing up perfectly. Now I want to give this div background of white, so I'll say bg-white, and I also want to give it padding of 5. So I'll say p-5. Let's save. And I want to change the text color to black. So I'll say text dash, instead of black, I think gray 900 will be better choice, because I don't want the text to be absolute black. Style the heading. So I'll give it class attribute, and then I'll say font bold, and I will change the text color of this anchor tag. So I will give class to the parent div, and I'll say dash blue 600 or 500, let's say. Okay, so now the source code is blue. Let's put a prefix md colon before this grid cos 3 class, so that this grid has 3 columns only in medium devices and above. And let's copy this card 3 times for showing 3 different cards. Save it, and now we have 3 different cards, but currently there is no gap between all of these 3 cards. So here, where I have given class of grid, I'll say gap 10. Now we have gap between all of these cards. Maximize it, and this is how our cards are looking in maximized window. I forgot to give it a heading, so I'll say h2 projects, because this section is for showing projects, and I will give class to this heading, and I'll say section heading. Let's save. Let's change these 3 images. So from my file explorer, I will copy the name of this image. So I'll press F2, then I'll press Ctrl+A to select all of the text. Then I'll press Ctrl+C to copy it. And let's come back to index.html. Let me close this image. And here I will replace the file name with file name of another image. Let's copy file name of this image also here. Now let's save and have a look at our project. So this is how all of these cards are looking. Let's leave it for now. We will beautify each of the elements of this page, and we will make sure that this website looks good. But before that, I want to create each of the sections. So that is why I'm not trying to make it look perfect in one go. So next, what we want to do, we will create contact me section. So let's come back to our VS Code. Let me collapse the file explorer, and here start building the contact section. So first of all, I will give it a class of p20 so that it has padding of 20. Now here again I want to create grid, so I'll say div grid dot grid calls dash 2, because this time we want to have 2 columns. Now the first column will have all of the details like my location, my phone number, email address, and all of those stuffs. And the second column will have the contact me form, from where people will be able to send me email. So let's create some elements for first column. So I will create an h6 element, and I'll say location, and then I'll create an address element, and here I will write my location. So I'll say Jamshedpur, Jharkhand, India. After location, I want to show my email address. So I write email, and here I'm gonna provide my email address, premsagar9113@gmail.com. Then I want to provide my phone number. So I'll say phone number, and here I will write my number 911341388. I also want to give it country code. So I'll say 91 or +91. And at the end, I want to leave link to all my social media handles. So I'll say social media handles, and here I'm gonna have icons of each of social media handles like YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, GitHub, and so on. Now in the second column, I want to create a form which will be used as contact me form. So I'll simply copy paste the form elements from my previous project. So these are all of the elements of my form. At first, I have an input element for providing name. Second input element is for providing email address of the sender. And third text area element is for typing the message. And this fourth one is button element. And each of these elements are surrounded with field set element. Save it and have a look at our project. So this is how these 2 grids are looking for now. So let's start styling this section. So first of all, I want to give background image to this section. So I'll say bg dash, and within the square bracket I'll say URL, and inside parentheses within double quotes I'll say image /background / what was the name of the file? Let me check it. So I'll open up my Explorer, and inside this image folder, inside this background folder, this is the image which I'm going to use. So this is named bg6.jpg. So let me close it. Here in the URL, I will write bg6. Let's save. And this is our background image with full width and height. So let's say bg-cover, bg-fixed, and bg no repeat. Save. Okay, I added these classes in wrong place, so I'll just cut these and I'll place it over here. Let's save. So this is how our background image is looking currently. I want to give it overlay just like we did in this services section. So what I'll do, I'll simply copy the overlay div from services section. So let me collapse this project section, and here is this overlay div. So I'll just copy it and I'll collapse this section also. Now right after the opening tag of this section, I'll paste this div, and for this absolute position of this div to work, we need to set positioning for this section. So I'll say relative, and I want to give it z index of 10. Let's save and have a look at project. Yes, now it has nice overlay. Okay, I have made a mistake. I've used h2 for these text, email and phone number. So I'll quickly change it to h6, and each of these headings are gonna have same style. So I'll style them inside input.css. So I'll target, what should I target? Let me have a look. So inside contact section, I want to style each of h6. So I'll say hashtag contact h6 at apply, and I'll make them bold. So I'll say font dash bold, and I also want to give some spacing between location, email and phone number. So I'll give this h6 margin top of 5, and this style did not apply to social media handles, and I think because I did not change this h2 to h6. Save. Now everything is good. Now let's start styling this contact me form, but before that I will prefix md : before this grid. Let's save. I want to give this contact me form a heading. So inside h6 I'll say contact me, or I'll say send message, and I will give heading to this section. So here I'm gonna create an h2 element and I'll give it a class of section heading. Save. Cool. Let's give gap of 10 between each of the columns. So I'll say gap. Save. Yes. Now I want to give border to this contact form. So inside this parent div, I'll give it a class of border -2, and I will give it padding of 20. I want to make it rounded, so I'll say rounded XL. Let's center this send message heading. So I will give it a class of text center, and I want to give it margin bottom of 20. I think margin 20 and padding 20 is a bit too high, so I'll change it to 10, and I will also change the padding of this div to 10. Just this is looking nice. Now let's target these input fields and text area. So I'll style these in input.css. So I'll say contact form input and text area. Apply. I want to give it width of 250 pixels. So I'll write 250px, and I will give it padding of 2, and I'll give it class of rounded XL, and I will give it margin bottom of 2. Let's save. I think this rounded value of 2xl is a bit too high, so I'll change it to just xl, and I want to change the background to transparent. So I'll say bg-transparent, and let me change the width because 250 pixel is too low. So I'll say width full, but I want to give it maximum width of 600 pixels. So I'll say w dash or max dash w dash within the square bracket. I will give this arbitrary value of 600 pixel. Save. Okay, now there is no border. That is why we are unable to see its width due to this transparent background. So I'll say bg dash, sorry, not bg, because I don't want to give it background. I want to give it border. So I'll say border dash. Let's save. And each time I'm saving my index.html, page is being refreshed, but it is always going back to this services section. I don't know why is this happening. Any one of you know, then please just let me know in the comment why am I having this problem. Now I want to apply minimum height to specifically just the text area. So I will say height, and within the square bracket I'll say 250 pixel. Let's save. Yeah, this is good. Now these placeholders are currently in gray color, and that is why it is not visible. So let's target the placeholder. So I'll copy it, and here I'm gonna say placeholder, and here also I want to target the placeholder, and I want to change its color, so I'll say text white. Now let's maximize it and have a look at our contact form. So this is how our send message form is looking. I think the background should be a bit more dark so that this form is easy to read. And one more thing we need to do, we need to style this send button. So let's do that. First of all, I will decrease the opacity of this background overlay. So let's see, 0.68. How does it look? Now I think contact me form is readable. Now let's style this submit button. So I'll give it a class of bg-blue 600, and I wanted to change its background color when we hover over it. So I'll say hover : bg-blue 800, and I want the button to be rounded, so I'll say rounded full, and I will give it padding in x-axis of 8, and I will give it padding in y-axis of 3. Let's save. So this is how our send button is looking. So currently I'm not gonna worry about how this submit form will work. Just wanted to show you how can you create the front end side of this website and how can you deploy it. So I'm not going to cover this in this video. Maybe I'll show it in some other video. Now we need to add some icons from Font Awesome. So I'll go to fontawesome.com and I will search for icon of all of major social media platforms. So here in the search bar, I'm gonna say Facebook, and first of all let's click on this free link so that it shows only the free icons. I'll click on this icon, then I'll click on start using this icon, and let's copy this HTML and paste it over here right after the heading which says social media handles. But I want to paste the icon inside an anchor tag so that it acts as a link. Let's save it and have a look at our project if the icon appeared or not. And yes, this is the icon. So I'm not gonna show you the whole process of importing each of the icons. I will simply copy paste HTML from previous project. So here I'm gonna copy paste all of social media handle icons along with the link, and I'll wrap it around a div. So I'll create a div and wrap all of these icons inside this div. Let's save and have a look at our project. It should work. And yes, now it's time to create the footer. So footer is actually already created. So I'll just give it some height. So I'll say class h-80, and I will copy paste this social media handle links so that these show up in the footer also. And here I'm gonna write my name. So I'll say h5 frame Sagar, and I will give class of text center to footer so that all of the text are aligned in center. Save, and this is how our footer is looking. I want these texts to be at the center. So I'll make this footer a flex box, and I'll wrap all of the children element inside a div. I will say item center. Okay, so it is vertically aligned, but I think I also need to apply one more class, and that is justify center. So let's apply this class and have a look. Yes, it worked. I just had to save it twice. So now our page is almost ready. Now we just need to make it mobile friendly, and I want to make each of the elements look perfect from my point of view. So let's do that. First of all, I want to increase padding bottom of each of these section headings. So let's do that. So we already have given it margin bottom of 10. So let's increase margin bottom and have a look. Now it's better. I also want to increase font size of each of these section headings. So currently it is set to text 4XL. I'll set it to text 6XL. I think these big headings will catch the attention of viewer of this website, and it will make it very crystal clear for viewer to understand which section is for what. Let's have a look at our previous project so that I can spot if I have missed anything. And yes, as we can see, I am missing some of the icons. So before this source code, I had to give icon of GitHub, which I forgot. So let's quickly put the icon in that place. So inside this project section, right before this word source code, I will copy paste HTML of font awesome for icon of GitHub. So I'll press Ctrl+V, and I also want to use some icons before these words: location, email, and phone number. So I will use the icons from previous project. So here in the contact section, right before this word location, I will paste icon HTML for location, and before this word email, I will place icon of envelope, and before phone number, icon of a phone. Let's save and have a look at our project. Okay, these icons did appear, but these are in different lines, not in same line, and I don't know what is the reason. This is because h6 is a block element, and that is why it is taking up the full width. So I'll simply insert this icon inside h6 element. Now let's save, and the icons are in the right place. I forgot to paste icon before this place and this place, so I'll quickly do that. So I'll copy it from first card and I'll paste it to second card and to third card. Save. Now this is good. I want to separate this source code section from the upper description, so I will give border to these divs. So I'll say border top, border dash T to give it border top, and I want to give it border of 4, and I also want to give it margin top of 2. And let's have a look. How does it look? And as you can see, this thickness is a bit too high. So instead of border 4, I will say border 2, and I will also give it padding at top of 2. Let's save and have a look. How does it look now? I think this is nice. So let's copy this and paste it for other divs also. Let's save, and now this is looking better than before. Is there anything else we can do? Actually, a website is never ready. So there is a lot that we can do, but I think I'm gonna leave it after making some more tweaks. I want to increase text size of these words. So this is inside contact form, right? So let's come to contact section, and here in the parent div, I'll say class text dash 2xl. Let's see how does it look. And yes, now these words are looking a bit prominent, but I think these should be in the center. So I'll put everything inside this div inside another div, and I'll make it a flex box, and then I'll align it in the center vertically and horizontally. So I'll say div, and I'll cut the starting tag and I'll paste it at the end, and let's indent these. And now let's give it a flex class and give it a class of item center and justify center. Let's save, and now this is perfectly at the center. There is one more thing which I want to do. I want to show these social media handle links in this place also, here where I'm saying hi, I'm Prem Sagar. So I'll copy these. And I'll come to navigation bar or header, and here inside hero section, right after this paragraph, I will paste it. Let's save and have a look. Currently these icons are too small, so I will increase the font size of this parent div. I will apply some classes, so I'll say text as 4xl. Have a look. Yeah, now these icons are looking a bit prominent. Let's give it margin top of 5. Let's save, and yes, now it's looking good. Now the last thing which we need to do, we need to animate all of these when we scroll down. So for that, I'm gonna use a JavaScript library which is called animate on scroll. So just search for AOS in Google, and you will get this first link of animate on scroll library. Click on it and you will be redirected to official website of this library. And if you scroll down, you can see all of the styles which they have for animating divs or elements of your HTML page. So we have many different ways of animating our element, as you can see. So you can apply any of these animations in project using this library. So come at the bottom of this website, and we have CDN sources. So let's copy this link element and paste it on our project. So I'll paste it here, and let's copy the script and paste it just before the closing tag of our body. And we also need to initialize this library. So inside the script tag, we can write aos.init, or we can simply copy it and paste it over here. Now to give animation to each of our elements, we can copy these attributes and paste it on our element. So let me go to top, and I like this animation of fade right and fade left, so I'll copy this attribute data AOS fade right, and I will give this animation to my image. So my image is actually in this section, so let's paste the attribute and let's save and have a look at my website. Let's refresh, and as you can see, this is being animated, but there is one problem. This animation is too quick, so we can also change the duration of the animation by setting this data AOS duration attribute. So I'll copy it, and value has to be given in milliseconds, so I will say 20,000 milliseconds. Let's save and have a look, and now this animation is taking a little bit longer, which is making it look cool. This animation is taking a little bit longer, which is making it look cool. It would have been a bit nicer if this section, which has this heading and this paragraph and all of these elements, if this was animating from right and this image were animating from left. So let's try to achieve this effect, and for that to work, I need to take it out of this section and I'll paste it here inside this section. Let's see what happens. What happened is it got aligned after this section, so I need to make some changes. How can I fix this? I think I don't need to make any changes. I think I can apply animation to this div separately. So let's try with these attributes and paste it over here, and instead of fade right, I will change it to left. Save and have a look. I think I need to change the duration, so I'll say 30,000 milliseconds. Let's have a look. Okay, I think I can't do it like this. So what I'll do, right after this section, I'll create another div and I will cut all of these classes which is related to background image, and I'll paste it here. So I'll say class equal to all of these, and I'll position it absolutely. So I'll say absolute. For this absolute positioning to work, the parent must be relative. So I'll add relative class to the parent, and let's cut all of these attributes related to AOS or animate on scroll and paste it on this div which has my background image. And I also want to give it full width and height. So I'll say W dash full and H dash full. Save and fingers crossed. I hope it will work. If it does, I'll be super happy. And yes, it's working. The image is animating from left and the text is animating from right. See, just these kind of simple animation make a web page look alive, and I'm a huge fan of animation. So instead of simple fade right, I will say fade down right, and I'm not going to show you each of the available section. Just simply go to AOS libraries official website and look for the kind of animation you want to go for. Let's change this fade left to fade down left, and let's have a look. And yeah, now it's looking great. Do you notice this blip at the end of this animation? Have a look. I'm refreshing. This blip I'm talking about. This is happening because of increased width, and this scroll bar is appearing at bottom when these two elements are being animated. So I actually like this animation. That is why I'm gonna leave it, because this little blip is not a really huge issue and I'm okay with it, so I'll leave it. But if you don't want this to happen, then just use some other animation. So I will quickly add animation to each of these cards also. So I will copy these attributes and come to skills section, and I will paste these attributes, and I will give AOS attribute to each of the skill cards separately. Instead of fade down left, I want to give it the animation of fade left. Let me have a look. Let's refresh and have a look at our animation, and as you can see, this should not come from right, it should come from left. So instead of left, I'll say right, and I'll copy paste this for each of the skill cards. So after applying the AOS attribute to each of the cards, as you can see, as I'm scrolling down, these are being animated. Now let's animate these YouTube thumbnail images. So I will come to YouTube section, and here I will paste data AOS attributes, and instead of fade left, I'll say fade down, and I'll change the duration, and I'll set it equal to 1000 for first thumbnail and 1500 for second element or second thumbnail, and I'll set it 2000 for third thumbnail. Now let's save and have a look. So this is how our thumbnails are looking right now. Let's animate these cards also. I want to give these zoom in animation. So I'll come to AOS website and have a look at which attribute I need to use. So we need to use this zoom in. So let's come to services section and paste the attributes. I'll replace this with zoom in, and again I want to give different duration to each of the cards. So I'll set it equal to 2000 for first card and 2500 for second card and 3000 for third card, so that all of the cards pop up at different times. Save and have a look at our page. Each of the cards are zooming in at the same time. I don't know what is the reason, although I gave each of these different durations, but each of these cards are zooming in at the same time. What is the reason? Let's change the values to 1000, 1500 and 2500. Let's save and have a look. Okay, so this is working perfectly fine now. Now let's animate these cards. So I'm looking for some cool animation. How does this flipping card looking? Let's try this. So I'll maximize this project section and let's paste attribute. Again, I want to give different duration to each of the cards. So I'll change it to 1000 and I'll quickly paste it for other two cards. Now let's save it and have a look at our project. So this is how these cards are looking, and I don't know why my web page is lagging. Maybe because my computer is on heavy load, but it will look nice in your computer. I think these animations are making our web page a bit laggy, because as you can see, when I'm scrolling down, my web page is not scrolling down immediately. So you should be careful about using these animation libraries, and you should use some simple animation only, so that it does not make the page laggy, because it will give a very bad user experience. So instead of this flip animation, I will simply use zoom in. So I'll undo all of my copy paste work, and I will copy these zoom in effects or attributes for zoom in effects, and I'll paste it for projects cards. Now let's save, and I want to make sure that my page does not lag when I scroll up and down to these animations, and it is still lagging. And I think it is lagging because I'm using full-sized image for these cards. These images are not compressed, and I think that might be causing problems. So I'll make sure that I compress these photographs later before deploying it onto the server. Now, last but not least, I want to animate these two columns also. So let's come to contact section, and I'll paste the AOS attributes, and instead of zoom in, I will change it to fade down right. And for the second column, instead of down right, I will say down left. Now let's save and have a look, and these are looking good. Okay, now at this point in time, I can say that desktop version of our website is ready, and it is looking pretty cool. Now let's focus on making it look good in mobile devices also. So for that, I'm gonna open up Firefox, because I think that Firefox provides better tools for designing mobile first websites. So I've got my Firefox opened. I'll right click and I'll click on inspect, and then I'll click on this icon which is looking like a tablet or a mobile, and it will open up this tool which we can use to have a look at how our website will look in different screen sizes. So as you can see, these texts are too large, and also this whole section where this heading and this paragraph are residing are in the middle of the screen. So in small devices, I want to decrease margin bottom. So let's do that. Let me quickly rearrange these. I'll come to the navigation bar at the top, and right after navigation bar I have this paragraph and heading. So class is actually setting the size of our heading, currently set to 4XL. Let's set it to XS, and XS stands for extra small, and let's save. And now our heading is quite small, so I won't give it class of XS. Try base and have a look. How does it? Okay, I think base size will be good. So this text size of base will be applied on all of the devices, but in medium devices and above, I want to increase the text size. So I'll give it a class of md:text -lg or XL. I'll give it class of text XL, so that in medium devices it has text size of XL. Now we'll do the same for paragraph. Currently the text is set to SM, so we'll change it to XS, extra small, and in medium devices it is set to base, so we will change it to SM, and we will leave it to large only for large devices. This div which contains this h1 and paragraph element and all of the social media handle icons, this div currently has margin bottom of 32. So we don't want to give margin bottom of 32 in small devices, so we will change it to 10, and we will specify margin bottom for medium devices and above specifically. So I will say md:margin bottom -28, and for large devices I will give it a class of lg:margin bottom -32. Now let's save. This is a bit better than before. Now one more thing which we can do is we can decrease the padding of this div in small devices. So currently padding is 20. Let's decrease it to 5 for smaller devices, and for medium devices we will set the padding to 10, and for larger devices we will set padding to 20. Save. Let me maximize it and have a look. How does it look in different screen sizes? And yes, it is better than before. Okay, so I think our hero section is done. Next is the skills section. So let's come down to skills section, and I think I don't need to do anything for skills section because it is already looking pretty nice. Yeah, so we will leave it. Now next is the YouTube section. So let's come to this YouTube section. The first thing which we need to change is this section heading. So let's come to input.css, and as we can see, section heading has text of 6XL. So let's put md: before this text -6XL so that this class is applied only in large screen sizes, and let's set a default text size value. So I'll set text -2XL, and for medium devices I will say md: text -save. I think 2XL is a bit too low, and mistakenly I have given this md: class twice. So I will change the first one lg:, so that text size is applied in large screen sizes. Yeah, let's come back to the default size. This should not be 2XL, it should be 4XL. So I think I don't need to specify this -4XL because the default size is 4XL only. Save, and yeah, text size is good enough. Let's have a look. How does this section look in medium screen sizes? Okay, in medium screen size, this is how this section will look. I think this arrangement is looking good in medium devices also, because if I change its width to 100% in medium devices, then these thumbnail will become too large, which I don't want. So I will leave it like this. But now if we come to services section, we have 3 columns of grid. So let's try to fix this. We want to have only 1 column in medium devices for this services section. So let's come to VS Code, and let me collapse this YouTube section, and let's focus on services section. Here to this grid, I have given this class md: grid cos 3. So I will change it from MD to LG because I want this section to have 3 columns only in large devices. So let's save, and now these cards are taking full width. I think we need to increase the padding of this section for medium devices. So here the default padding is set to 20. So I will give it another class of MD colon P dash, let's try 32. Let's save and have a look. So I think we can increase padding a little bit more. So let's try 48. Let's save, and yes, I think padding of 48 is looking good. And in large devices, we don't want padding of 40. So I will specify padding of 20 for for large devices. So I will say LG colon P20, save, and it's looking good in large devices also. I think for small devices, we need to decrease the padding. So let's change the default padding. Currently it is set to 20. Let's change it to 12. Save and have a look. This is good. This is how the services cards are looking in medium devices, and this is how it is looking in small devices, and this is how it is looking in large devices. So I am happy with the looks of services section. Now let's come to this project section. Now again, let's decrease the size. As we can see in medium devices, these cards are looking like they are squeezed. So let's come to project section, and here where I have given it class of 3 columns, I will replace this MD class with LG so that these 3 columns will exist only in large devices. Save. Now again, for medium devices, we need to increase the padding of this section. So you can say MD colon dash 48. For large devices, you can say P20. Save, and now it's looking better. So this is how this project section is looking in small devices, and this is how it's looking in medium devices, and this is how it is looking in large devices. Now next we have contact section. Let's have a look. How is it looking currently? And I think it's looking good in small devices. Let's have a look. How does it look in medium devices? And I think it is looking good in medium devices also, and in large devices this look is just perfect. So we don't need to touch contact me section. Now the last thing is footer. So let's have a look. How does it look in small devices? I think we need to give this footer some padding. So let me collapse this project section, and let me collapse contact section also, and let's expand footer, and here I will give it a class of P10 so that it has padding of 10, and I think it's looking great in all different screen sizes. I think our website is completely ready finally, and I think it's ready to be deployed. So now let's see how we can deploy a static website like this one in Firebase. And I'm very excited because I have never ever deployed any website using Firebase. So this is a new experience for me also using Firebase. So let's quickly do all of the things that is needed for hosting this website. But before that, let me commit my changes so that I can upload this source code on GitHub so that you guys can take a look at my code. And if you are following along, you can also compare your code against mine. So here in the terminal, I'll say git status. Let's first check the status. So these are the files which have been changed since last commit. So I will add all of these files. So I'll say git add, and after that I'll give a period to add all of the files at once. And now I will say git commit dash M to specify the message, and this is actually the 4th commit. I have not shown you guys any of the commit which I have made in this video. This is the last commit which I'm showing you guys, so I'm sorry for that, but I don't think you needed to see that. I should say final commit instead of 4th commit, so I'll say final commit. Now let's commit. Now I'll push this to GitHub later. Let me first deploy this website. I just want to complete this tutorial. That is why I'm not finalizing this website. I will do that later because as you can see, not all of the things of this website are production ready, because here I am not showing any of my real project, and the footer has no real text or no real message. It has only some lorem ipsum. So because I want to complete this tutorial, I will jump to hosting this website. So first let's search for Firebase in Google and click on the first link, and I will click on this get started button, and now I'll click on this project button. So I'll click, and I want to give name of my project, so I will call it portfolio project. Continue, and I do want to enable Google Analytics for this project, so I'll leave it enabled only. Let's continue. And it is asking me to select an account, so I'll select this one which says Prem. Now I'll create project. It will take a little amount of time to create project for us. Let's wait and watch. Okay, now it is done creating the project. Let's click on continue. Now we want to create a web app, so we will click on this web button, and it is asking me to give a nickname to our app. So I will call it the Prem Sagar because I already have a domain with this name, the Prem Sagar. And here we can check this box of also set up Firebase hosting for this app, but we'll do that later. So I'll simply click on this register app. Now it is showing us all of the steps. So first of all, it is telling us to install Firebase. So because I already have installed Firebase, I think I don't need to do this. Okay, so next thing which we need to do is we need to log into Firebase. So before that, what I'll do, our website is inside this portfolio folder, right? And here we have this dist folder, and all of the files related to our website is in this folder. If I right click on this index.html and I open it with Google Chrome without using any live server, we can see our static page is working just fine. So the website which we just created is a static website. It does not have any backend, or it is not using any API. So I'll copy all of these because basically this is our website, and here in the desktop I'll create a new folder and I'll call it website, or I'll call it portfolio website, and I'll open this folder and here I'll paste it. And again I'll create a new folder, public, and I'll name it public, and I'll move all of these files inside the public folder. Now here in this place, in the address bar, we will type cmd and then press enter, and our command prompt will open up inside this folder. Now here we will run all of our Firebase commands. So first of all, we need to run this command, Firebase login. So let's run it, and it's saying that I'm already logged in. Now the next thing which we need to do, we need to initialize Firebase. So we'll run this command, Firebase init, and it's asking, are you ready to proceed? Yes. Now it's asking which Firebase features do you want to set up for this directory. We want to use this one, hosting configure files for Firebase hosting. So let's press spacebar for selecting this option and hit enter. And now it's asking us, please select an option. What do you want to do? Use an existing project or create a new project? We want to use an existing project, so we will select this option and press enter. Now it's asking us to select our project, so we want to select this one, portfolio project. So we'll select it and press enter. Now it's asking, do you want to use this public folder as your public directory? So I will hit enter. Now it's asking configure as single page app. So I'll say no, because our web page is not a single page application because we haven't created it using React or Vue. So I'll say no. Now it's asking set up automatic build and deploy with GitHub. So I'll say no. Now it's saying file public 404.html already exists. Overwrite. So I'll say no because I want Firebase to use my files. So I'll just say no. Now it's again saying public/index.html already exists. Overwrite. No, we don't want to overwrite this file also. So I'll press N and press enter. Now it's saying Firebase initialization complete. Now the last command which we need to run is this Firebase deploy. So let's copy it and run this command, and this should deploy our website in a moment. And it is stuck at 18%. Okay, 27% complete, 36% complete. So I've got my website deployed. If we copy this link and paste it on browser, we should see my website, and this is my website. So now my website is live. Now next thing I want to do is I want to add a custom domain to my website. So I'll come to Firebase website. Let me just quickly open up the Firebase website, and I'll open up this project portfolio, and here I will click in the hosting tab. Here we've got this button, add custom domain. So let's click, and I already have registered a domain, the premsagar.com. So let's continue. It's saying add txt record below to your DNS provider to verify you own the premsagar.com. Do not delete your txt record. So let's copy the value, and I will go to hostinger.com because I have registered my domain from hostinger.com only, and I'll log in with Google. And this is my domain, thepremsaga.com. I'll click on this manage button and I'll click on this tab DNS name server, and let me quickly come back here. So I have copied it. Now where is txt record? This is txt record. So I'll edit it, and I want to set the txt value to the value copied from Firebase. Now let's click on update. Now it says DNS record successfully updated. Now let's come back to Firebase website and click on verify. Now it's saying that add these A records to your domain by visiting your DNS provider or registrar. Your site will show a security certificate warning for few hours until the certificates has been provisioned. Remember to remove your old A records or any AAA records from your DNS provider. So now what I'll do, I'll copy this IP address and I'll come to Hostinger website and I'll paste it here. And for the name, I will say add record, DNS record created. Let's delete this one. It already has an A record, so let's delete this one. Now next, I think I need to click on finish. Okay, so now my domain name has been added, thepremsaga.com. It is asking me, would you like to add www.thepremsaga.com too? So yes, I would like to do that. So I'll click on add. This is the domain. So let's click on continue. Now it's saying add these A records to your domain by visiting your DNS provider. Your site will show a security certificate warning for a few hours until the certificates have been provisioned. Now let's click on finish. Currently it is set to pending. And why is it set to pending? Domain changes are propagating. This may take up to 24 hours. Please check back later. So we will check back later. Let me just refresh the page and see if it works. Now it's saying both of these are in pending status. So let me just open it in my web browser, www.thepremsaga.com. Currently my web browser is saying that my website is not secure because it does not has HTTPS over here. Essentially what it is trying to say that this page does not have an SSL certificate. So I think it will take around 24 hours. This is just Firebase thing. So we won't get this warning message after 24 hours. For now, let's proceed to www.premsaga.com. And it's taking really long to load up the website. So this is my website, live and running. Now if you ever want to find me, you know where to find me, thepremsaga.com. This is where you can find me. This is it for this video. If you liked this video, just give it a thumbs up. After editing, this video will be, I think, 1.5 hours long, but it has taken me around 15 days to create this video because I have tried and tested many things and it took me a really long time. So if you want to appreciate my effort, then just please like this video and share it with anyone who will want to learn how to build this kind of website with Tailwind CSS HTML. And if they want to learn how to deploy it. And you can also contact me if you want me to build website for you or your organization. So see you in the next video. Goodbye for now.